government for servicing my community, and I'm really proud of this. That makes me feel everyone is there supporting me.
Good evening, Australia. Welcome to the show. I'm Michael Kuzilny. Thank you very much for the pleasure of your company after all these years. I run into people in the streets, they say, Michael, I've been watching your show for years and I've read your book. And the reason we do this show, it's not about pretentious garbage. It's about authenticity and kind people coming on their show to inspire others to get through the tough times. This is something we should be all concerned about to alleviate the suffering of others, because there's now more than 300 million people suffering from depression. In America, there's more than 40 million people diagnosed with severe anxiety and depression, and the same's happening all over Western society. On tonight's show, I've got a lovely man. He's a beautiful human being. His name is David Kong. He's an Australian leader in the Sudanese community and came here in 2002. David Kong, thank you very much for coming. You're such a wonderful and beautiful human being, and you've really dedicated yourself to the welfare of others. What made you come to Australia, or should I say, how come we're so lucky to have you?
Thank you very much, Michael, for inviting me. It's a great honor, and I would like to thank everyone who get involved. In fact, I left my country at the age of 8 years and fled to refugees camp in Ethiopia, and then go back again.
Oh, you fled your country. Where were you born?
I was born in South Sudan.
Okay.
But I left my country at the age of 8 years.
8?
I have to walk for long distance, and
because there was a war where you were?
Because there was a war, yeah.
Were friends of yours and family killed?
Absolutely, yes. So we have to leave our local town to Ethiopia to survive, because that's the only way we can survive, because there's a lot of antelope bombarding all the village. And if I could recall that, it was a very terrible experience. Yes. And then in 2001, I had to escape again to Kenya in Kakuma refugees camp, in which many of us came from that camp to Australia.
David, can I ask you, were some of your family members or extended family members killed during that war?
Absolutely. I lost a lot of relative, close friends, and it actually very sad when I try to look back at that experience.
It's so sad. And for a lot of Australians, they don't quite understand why the war happened. In a nutshell, who was fighting who?
Well, in the whole Sudan, there was the conflict between predominantly African community in the southern part of the country, because Sudan is a large country in Africa with a dominant Muslim in the government, and then the South Sudanese, who actually identify themselves as African, feel that they want to opt from that country because they're not even part of that country, although they are citizens.
So, David, that caused a lot of tension. And
Absolutely.
Would they then shoot people, or what did they do? Did they beat people with sticks or shoot them with guns?
Well, the only way to survive is to either leave your area, because the government don't want, because there was a rebel movement within the South Sudan actually fighting for a united Sudan in which things should be changed, but unfortunately that didn't work out. And then since 1983, they've been fighting for freedom and also participation in society, because in North Sudan, you have to be Muslim, you have to be...
I see. So it's about... Yeah. And moving right along, because it's a beautiful story and we've only got limited time, David, you're in a refugee camp with your family or by yourself?
Well, I came along with my ex-wife and
Were they in the refugee camp too?
Absolutely, yep.
God bless them. So food was limited. You were living in rooms of 10 people maybe?
Well, not leave alone the food, even the basic, the water. You have to get up early in the morning at around 5 o'clock to get water otherwise you miss out.
Amazing.
So it's
So we
really
can
very
tell now,
difficult
viewers, why
time.
we get all these beautiful Sudanese people coming, and they're so happy to come here, and we should greet them with kindness. David, you then come to Australia, your application's accepted, and you think, thank God, this is great. What do you think when you first come to Australia?
Well, my present impression was how lucky I am, because I know a lot of people fled South Sudan back in 90, and then they stay in Kenya even now.
Yeah.
But I'm very lucky. I came to Kenya in 2001, and then one of relative sponsored me to come to Australia, and I come here in 2002.
Amazing.
So when I arrive at Melbourne Airport, everything is different. I'm not sure where I'm at, and really big loss, really, because everything is different. But yeah, coming from refugees camp to a city like this is a big shock.
So coming from how long in the refugee camp?
Well, as I mentioned before, I left my country at the age of 8 years. I spent quite a lot of time in different refugees camps, first in Ethiopia and then in Kenya.
But what did you do for money?
Well, we only depend on United Nations
Funding.
refugees
Amazing.
agents.
And look at you
There's
now.
no
in such
any
a
other
short-
way to
and,
get
and you
money.
studied theology and business. When did you do that when you came here?
Well, when I came to Australia in 2002, I attend Baptist College of Victoria, which is not that far from here, at Royal Parrot, and then studied for 3 years doing my certificate while learning English at the same time. Because
Amazing.
I have to learn everything again.
Amazing.
And then prior to that, I studied Diploma of Ministry,
Yes.
and that was 2007. And then in 2012, I started community development because I want to help my community settle here in Australia. And 2014, started business, and which
Amazing.
I'm running my own business.
At
the
one
moment.
stage, you wanted to become a priest.
Absolutely, yep.
You've got a strong connection with the Lord, yeah?
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah. In the mornings, do you wake up and show gratitude every day?
Absolutely. I have to prepare for my sermon every Sunday, and it was a really quite exciting time.
Do you speak at the church?
Absolutely, yep.
Isn't that amazing, David? We might talk about some of the difficult times, even in Australia, you've gone through, but and also the successes you've achieved. But thank you for coming on, Mr. Kong, and thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. David Kong, he's a leader in the Sudanese community, and he's a decent and a beautiful human being. Back very shortly. Tough times never last. I'm Michael Kuzilny. I think it's really important to remember, if you're going through some difficult issues, that we all go through a lot of difficult issues. You know, I've been around the criminal justice system for over 30 years now, and I see so many people suffering, but I give a lot of my clients advice that everything's impermanent. All the good things never last, and all the bad things never last either. So if you are going through a difficult life challenge at the moment, there's nothing to fix. Just go through it and surrender to a higher power, and everything will sort itself out. And everything you're going through has a personal learning lesson for you to make you even stronger. David Kong's on the couch. He's a beautiful human being who's come to this country in 2002. He's really dedicated himself to the service of others, to introduce the Sudanese community to employment, to housing. They come to the airport, and David Kong is quite often at the airport to greet them. There's givers and takers in life, ladies and gentlemen. This man is a giver. He's raised more than $1.2 million for a local community centre in Frankston a few years ago. And it's not just for the Sudanese community. I mean, that was an amazing effort, David, to raise so much money. What was the passion behind that?
Well, as I mentioned before, when I came to Australia, I was really shocked because I really got lost, but I realized that I'm in the right place. And then when I settle, I feel like I need to contribute back to the community because my community worked hard to bring me here by paying my airfare ticket And then when I arrive, I feel like I need to contribute back to the community. In 2014, I feel that we have to start a project, and that project is to establish a South Sudanese Australian Community Center in Victoria. And it's not easy. It's difficult to raise money, but with a lot of effort of other people from wider Australian community, we start raising fund for the last few years, and we are still raising that fund. We haven't raised that 1.5 million yet, but we are still trying our best to
Amazing.
achieve that center, because we think that if we achieve that community center, that will actually help our community to understand different aspects, probably through public education.
Amazing,
about
David.
Australian law.
Amazing.
Yep.
And moving around along, that you've got so much to share, and I'm sorry to keep you short sometimes, and we spoke about this at Gord, simplicity. But folks, are Aussies are we racist? That's always a big issue, isn't it? The government says no, we accept everybody, and we're beautiful, kind-hearted people. But I don't think so. I think sometimes we are. You know, we've seen it with different groups in Australia causing problems. There might be a group causing some problems, but all of a sudden, it's amazing how the media picks up on it. And people, they go, oh, there's those, those people again, and different. Then the Sudanese, the Islams, we've seen it with the, down Cronulla Beach there, the Lebanese. For a while there, this big hate campaign against certain races, and I think that's quite appalling. David, you would agree. There's been a few sort of Sudanese boys fighting, bit of violence, drunken violence, but then again, there's a lot of Aussies fighting, drunken violence. But are we a racist country?
Well, what I would suggest is that, of course, there is a pocket of group of people within our society who actually don't see the whole picture of different groups who settle in Australia. Yes. But I think the majority of Australians are very wonderful people, and I hope maybe lack of knowledge or ignorance or any sort of that actually contribute to that racism or hatred.
You just summed it up beautifully. What David said is quite right. It's the minority. And you're quite right. It's people who've got very, maybe disturbed minds or haven't travelled broadly. It's amazing how many people have only lived on their own little island. And, once they go overseas, they say, wow, you go to Italy, you go to Africa, you go to Germany and Russia and Thailand. You think, wow, everyone wants the same. We all need love. We all need to be loved. We all need to have that social component, and we all want to work hard, and we all go through different stress levels. You're amazing, though, David. Everybody in this in Western society is complaining about anxiety and stress, and they run around asking whether we're busy. But you're very content. You've gone through so many difficult times. How do you keep that robust attitude?
Well, I think the sense of community is very important, because, as I mentioned, we want to have a community center is to bring the different group of people within the community to support each other.
Certainly.
And part of that is to make sure everyone is okay.
Certainly.
I know we live in a society where everyone is busy, but within Sudanese community, they're very well connected. They support each other. And I think even if you might go through different challenge at the time, through support of your community is very vital.
That is so true. The law, unfortunately, in different countries differs. Poor David was faced with a magistrate's criminal charge when really he didn't do too much wrong. And he appeared at the Dandenong Magistrates Court, and things really needed to be explained to him. And when I saw him in conference, he said, Michael, I'm not a criminal, and I knew he wasn't. He's a decent, beautiful man who doesn't drink, smoke, or take drugs, but he got a summons to go to court for offences that carry up to 2 years jail. Is it important, David, to explain our laws to people? Because tell us about your situation.
Well, I think Australian law and I could say generally the migrant community need to be educated about Australian law and how the implication will be for employability, opportunity, because since then I got a lot of qualification, but I can't use those qualifications because of all this sort of issue that I have to deal with. So I think public education is very important.
Yeah.
Where people
Of
should
course.
be aware of all.
Because
the
tell me what happened to
implication.
you, just in a nutshell, very shortly, how an innocent mistake. Tell us what happened there.
Well, I run my own business in Noble Park area, in which I got a lot of connection with my community. One of my ex-cousin bring me in Kakuma because that's where the problem is. I live in Kakuma, I know how difficult it is. And then through compassion, that lady want to pass the information or contact to a relative, but she don't know a telephone number. Then I have to face with that challenge. And then I say, no, I can't do that, but she's still ringing every now and then, every night, and I
And we might
understand.
talk about that afterwards, but
Yep.
thank you for coming on. Thank you very much for watching. Back very shortly. Thank you very much for the pleasure of your company. We were just talking on the break how easy it is to, even for good people, to get into trouble with the criminal law. David Kong, as I said, studied to be a priest. He doesn't drink, smoke or take drugs, never been in trouble with the police, and helps the wider community. Really dedicated himself to the welfare of others, and he's a kind-hearted bloke, which is important. And he stands out because we've created a very selfish and hate-filled world where everyone's really, a lot of people just think about themselves. But somebody took an intervention order against him, an ex-relative, and for no valid reason. However, he then breached that order. And this is how he breached it. Somebody from the African community contacted him, an auntie from Africa. She urgently needed to get in touch with somebody. So he said, look, I don't want to speak to this person. She's got an intervention order against me. But another person from the African community passed on a piece of paper to ring her auntie in Africa who wanted to urgently speak to her. This lady then went to the police saying he breached the order by giving me the piece of paper through a third person. So a complete bullshit offence, I would say, a bullshit offence for this man then to get a summons to go to court, an invitation to go to court, and it says up to $28,000 or 2 years imprisonment. David saw me and he said, Michael, I really didn't mean to do the wrong thing. But amazing how the law works. The magistrate obviously understood, and I think you got a dismissal there, but education is important.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Mm. And it's also very stressful when you have to go to court, isn't it?
Well, imagine if you play a role like myself now in my community.
Yes.
You want to have a good role model sort of way so people can learn from you. But if you end on the other hand of the spectrum, it's very sad. Yeah. And I feel, what could we done to prevent that from happening from anyone who have a good intention but have no understanding of the law?
No, you're right, David. But David, I think you speak for yourself. There's an old saying, I can't hear what you're saying, what you are speaks so loudly. I can't hear what you're saying, what you are speaks so loudly. And with David Kong, he's a decent fella. He's a decent fella. He's a good father. He's just a good member of the community wherever he goes on the planet, because he's dedicated himself to the service of others, and he's not selfish, which is beautiful. He really serves his customers well in the business he's in, with the community, and no wonder he's got a good life, because it's what we put out is what we get back. Now, David, you had 16 siblings.
Yep.
And you had to bring them up.
I think that's where I come from. My father died when I was so young because of that conflict I mentioned before. Yeah. And then
he got killed.
Yep, culturally, as the adult child, I have to take the responsibility of looking after all my siblings, including mom and stepmom and everyone.
How old were you then, David?
And I'm very lucky I got my, I don't know how many are here in Australia, I think about 4 brothers and 1 sister. So some of them already get married, and we could be able to support our extended family. So having come here is a wonderful opportunity to be able to support my family back home in Africa. And that's why I have that heart to help my community, because I come from a family where
Yes.
everyone support each other.
I think you should go even further, David, and you're only 39 now, aren't you? I think you should go even further and support your community, but support and lead the Australian community. Wouldn't it be nice to have a authentic and warm-hearted leader like David Kong? I mean, we know the great leaders of history, people like Gandhi, people like Martin Luther King, people like Nelson Mandela. These were true leaders who didn't have that social mask of some of our politicians these days. Now we're just reading all the time in the Herald Sun about extortion, trying to get more money. It's all about me, me, me. People claiming that they live in one place and they don't. And a lot of these politicians are bullshit artists. And authenticity is important in leadership, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Have you ever thought about joining Australian government?
Well, that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. And in 2013, I was awarded with Victorian government for servicing my community, and I'm really proud of this wonderful
Congratulations, David.
gift. And
That is amazing.
that make me feel everyone is there supporting me, and they recognize what I contributed to the
And
community.
who the Premier gave you this?
Yep.
Amazing. That was Dennis, was it?
Then it's nice time. Yep.
Nice. So you work with government agencies all the time?
Yep, I involved strongly in my local government area in Frankston for that long, and they recognize my contribution and they nominate me to be awarded. I was even in Africa, and my wife collected at the Governor House in Melbourne. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I've seen photos of you, the mayor and everything, and with a lot of politicians. But I think it'd be nice if you sat in Parliament one day. Or even went, or even sat on a board to be an adjudicator, because you're a very decent man, a class act, I would say. Not many people like you around, David. You go out of your way to help others. But it's not just the. So, what are your plans for the next 5 years? Where's the great man? What are your goals?
Well, as I mentioned before, I have that heart to raise money to build a community center, and that center could be a meeting place for Sudanese community and wider Australian community.
Lovely.
Because there will be a lot of different professionals coming in to support the Sudanese community, and that's where a lot of people will understand these people are not bad. They're very good people. They just arrive in the country. They need a lot of support.
That's a great thing I was going to talk about. How can people donate? Just briefly, what do we do?
Well, we open an account in which people can donate.
What do we Google search?
Our organization is called South Sudanese Australian International Development. You can Google us on www.ssaid.com.au.
David Kong, you're a gentleman. Thank you very much. I honour and respect you. And ladies and gentlemen, I honour and respect you. Love and best wishes. And if you're going through some difficult times, just have a good rest, do some meditation, maybe do some prayer, and tomorrow will be another day. God bless you, and good night.